Yo, peace. So make sure you burn your sage for the bad days and keep it peace for the enemies, man. But look, so we're here right now. First things first, as you guys can see, what they're talking about, the Clippers seemingly tanking to avoid the Los Angeles Lakers, right? And there's a lot of things that we say, especially people in the pro truth community. Once again, Chronicles of Judah says it. Who else was it? The Dreamers Pro Live channel also said it. The dude from Dreamers Pro Live said it as well. That there's been like a code red issued on Kawhi Leonard ever since he hasn't signed with LeBron James, and they're trying to paint this picture that the Clippers are scared of the Lakers, and Kawhi Leonard is scared and fearful of LeBron James, right? But you got to understand, if Kawhi Leonard is scared of LeBron James and the Clippers are scared of LeBron James and the Lakers, why is it that LeBron James wasn't playing when he was healthy? How can you try to avoid the Lakers? How can you tank to avoid the Lakers when you're already in the playoffs? That doesn't make any sense. The Lakers still have to play for a play-in spot. How are they avoiding the Lakers? Okay, maybe in that first bracket, in the first half bracket, maybe they don't have to play the Lakers. But you got to make it, this is why I respect Kawhi Leonard so much. Kawhi Leonard went to the Clippers when all the talk was he should resign with Toronto or go join the Lakers, when LeBron James already had Anthony Davis, and Kawhi Leonard dominated the playoffs. He was the best player and the most dominant player in the league, and he won Finals MVP. He beat the Warriors, right? Took down another dynastic team. Kawhi Leonard did that. And LeBron James went to go try to recruit him. And Kawhi Leonard didn't sign there. So the fact that they're saying Kawhi Leonard is scared of LeBron James doesn't make any sense whatsoever. All right, and they're saying that the Clippers avoided the Lakers. If I'm not mistaken, the Lakers avoided the Clippers. The Clippers had the number 3 seed. The Lakers had a chance to still play for the number 6 seed, and LeBron James was sitting out. He said he was completely fine. He said he was 100% healthy. He felt great. Okay, and he continued to sit out. Even though after last year, LeBron James was sending indirect shots at Kawhi Leonard. He even took Michael Jordan's phrase, if I'm healthy, then I'm going to go out there and play. Why would I not play? It might be a little kid out there who's never seen me have a chance to play, and that might be the last opportunity that he has to see me play. So that's my duty. If I'm healthy, I'm going to play. Nigga took Michael Jordan's line, saying that he'd do it for the kids. No, the fuck you don't, Kawhi. No, the fuck you don't, LeBron James. No, the fuck you don't. You do it for Nike. All right? That's who you do it for. And you do it for yourself, which I have no problem with. All right? Because you're a commodity. Understand? You have to view yourself, and you have to look at yourself as, you have to view yourself as valuable and malleable to the league. That's why you don't sign the big, the long contracts, and you always have the 1 year option, the second year option. Have no problem with that. But now you're 100% healthy, and you've been avoiding games, sitting out games purposely so you guys can tank, so you guys can have a chance at the play-in tournament. And the thing is, one reason why I have to respect Kawhi Leonard is because he's taking on the challenge. Even though they dropped down to the 4th seed, they're playing the Mavericks, and the Mavericks, what everybody was saying last year, if Porzingis didn't get hurt, the Clippers were lucky that Porzingis got hurt. They weren't going to beat the Mavericks. So Kawhi Leonard is taking on the challenge to go take on those guys head on again. All right, I don't see what you guys are mad at. They avoided the easy team, the Portland Trailblazers. People want them to be to make it an easy path. No, Kawhi Leonard is not scared. That's why he signed with the Clippers. He took on the challenge. That's why he's the last of a dying breed. That's why people say he's Michael Jordan-esque, Kobe Bryant-esque. They don't say that about LeBron James. People in the media say that about LeBron James. And those are people that are being paid by Clutch Sports, media, like Nick Wrong, aka Nick Wright, which is hilarious that everybody's starting to call him Nick Wrong. That's fucking hilarious as shit. But Kawhi Leonard took on the challenge. He could have took the easy route. All right, and signed with the Lakers when the Lakers already had Anthony Davis and LeBron James. But he took on the challenge to go oppose those guys and take on the challenge. He's going back to face Dallas, where everyone said that they got lucky, and if Porzingis wasn't hurt, then the Clippers would have lost. So he's taking on that challenge to face those guys head up again. And also, if he was avoiding the Lakers, let's say they were avoiding the Lakers, right? If they faced the Lakers in the first round or in the first 2 rounds and they beat the fuck out the Lakers, everybody's going to say that the Lakers were healthy. I mean, the Lakers were unhealthy. LeBron just got back. He wasn't in rhythm. So there's going to be excuses. And I don't see how nobody's calling this shit out. All right. So anyway, let's get into it and see what's going on.
Wild.
Yeah.
How does he do that one?
We could spend the whole show on it. No, we can't. Back here with Antoine Walker talking basketball. So the Clippers, the Clippers decided to rest Kawhi and Paul George for the last 2 regular season games against the lowly Rockets and Thunder. They subsequently lost those 2 games, sliding to the 4 seed, where they will now face Dallas and not the Lakers in the first round. So, Antoine, what does it say about the Clippers that they avoided the Lakers?
First of all, let me say this. How can you avoid the Lakers when the Lakers still have to play for a playoff spot? That doesn't make any fucking sense. The Clippers' playoff spot is secured. They're in the playoffs. They don't have to play in a fucking play-in game, all right? The Lakers do. So I'm confused here.
Obviously, I'm old school. I love the competition part of the game, and I would love for these teams to match up. We didn't get the opportunity to see them play last year in the bubble. But I like this strategy by T. Lue and the Clippers. You avoid a team like the Lakers, a team that could possibly give you a lot of problems. Not saying it's going to be easy playing Dallas, but I would rather play Dallas than the Lakers. And then I may see the Utah Jazz in the second round, a team that I'm probably going to be very confident going against in the second round. So if I'm going to see the Lakers, I'm going to see them in the Western Conference. So I like this strategy. I actually, we tried to do this in Miami. We tried to avoid the Chicago Bulls. Our first year of the year, we won a championship. The Chicago Bulls took us 6 games. And then the second year, was we tried to defend that title, we got swept by the Chicago Bulls. They was a team that just had our number, a team that we never played really well against. Kurt Heinrich really guarded D-Wade really tough, and they just matched up really well with us. So that was a team we tried to avoid. So I understand the strategy right now of the Clippers saying, look, we don't want to play the Lakers right now. They're getting back healthy. If we can avoid them and take a different route, and not saying Dallas is going to be easy or maybe Utah, but it's an easier route than playing the Los Angeles Lakers.
I wouldn't necessarily agree. I would say that that's a tougher route going to play Dallas, a team that really gave them issues this season, that had their number this season, a team that gave them issues last season, a team that people say the Clippers got lucky by beating them because Porzingis was hurt. Kawhi Leonard is taking on the challenge, man. Kawhi Leonard and those guys are taking on the challenge, and the game after that, they will have a chance to play the Jazz, the series after that, if they pull it out. And then they'll go on to play the Lakers. So they'll be playing all 3 of the toughest teams in the conference rather than playing the fucking Trailblazers. All right? And then trying to play who else is up there in the West? And then trying to play the Jazz, and Jamal Murray is hurt. All right? So it's going to be nothing but excuses. It's going to be nothing but excuses if those guys, but the same as the excuses that weren't there for the Lakers for playing a whole bunch of easy fucking teams. You understand? But there's also times in history where you do avoid teams. What was it? And we're going to see what Nick Wrong has to say about this and why LeBron James is the greatest player of all time, of course. And he's a Clutch Sports media agent. All right. It's clear to me that LeBron James and Clutch Sports are paying him. And under the table as well. But anyway, let's get into it and see what this nigga got to say.
Hey. Someone getting rid of this?
Looks like it. When all-you-can pizza is
I'm so disappointed in myself. Not in Antoine. Not.
You should be disappointed in yourself, nigga. All you do is talk about all you do is talk about LeBron James. When the conversation isn't about LeBron James, you take the conversation to why LeBron James is the greatest player of all times. You're one of those guys that try to help control and push the narrative about LeBron James, making all of his teammates better. This championship last season counts as 2 championships for LeBron James because it'll be the first time winning on 3 different teams. It'll also be in a bubble pandemic year, and it'll be the hardest road to the finals. That counts as 2 championships. Yeah, whatever. And we're gonna see what this big nose motherfucker has to say. All right, this nigga look like the fucking the toucan from Fruity Loops, Tony the Toucan looking ass. Fucking. Let me stop, bro.
The Clippers and myself. Last year, I was America's leading Los Angeles Clippers truth teller.
To an extent, you were, yes, but you were hating so hard. You were hating so hard on Kawhi Leonard. You were one of the people that were bandwagoning for Kawhi Leonard to join LeBron James and Anthony Davis to make a super team. But you bashed Kawhi Leonard last year after they got, after they let up that 3-1 lead. You bashed the Clippers last year all season long, saying they were fake. They're fake championship contenders. How can you be a fake championship contender when you have Kawhi Leonard, the guy who just won Finals MVP the year before? What are you talking about? They were favored to make it to the finals. What are you talking about? They were championship contenders. They didn't live up to those expectations, but they were championship contenders. All right, the team that went and played the Lakers beat the fucking Rockets. All right, so what are you talking about? That would have been the Clippers contending for a championship. They were contending for a championship in the playoffs. That's what you do in the playoffs, Nick Wright. You fucking idiot.
Called me an oracle. I said, no, that's too far. But I just saw what others couldn't see. That this was a flawed team, poorly built roster, and that they were being anointed a championship contender, and I didn't even see them as a conference finalist.
Right. They weren't. You didn't see them as a championship contender, even though you wanted the Lakers to sign Kawhi Leonard and just assume that they were going to win multiple championships and become a dynasty, right?
This year, I had a choice to make early in the season. Am I going to stay riding on that anti-Clippers train?
Of course you are. Because you're a LeBron James fanboy, a sneaker fan. All right, you're one of these guys in the media, once again, that pushes everything, changes the subject all the time to LeBron James being the GOAT. All right, and you guys never move that bar. If LeBron James wins this year, he's the greatest player of all time. If he beats this Warriors team with Kevin Durant, then he loses. And then next year, LeBron James, if he couldn't get it done last year, if he beats this team this year, then he's going to be the greatest player of all time. And I don't want to hear it with Kevin Durant and Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond. And then last year, it was, this is going to count as 2 rings. He's going to have 6, and he's going to tie Michael Jordan, and he's going to win MVP. Even though this year, it was the same thing. LeBron James deserves to win MVP. He has his team sitting and battling at the top of the Western Conference. And Joel Embiid's missed too many games, but even though LeBron James missed just as much games as he did, that doesn't matter. We got to help LeBron James catch Michael Jordan. It's a fucking joke. These niggas in the media are a fucking joke. These niggas are clowns, man. Everything has to revolve around LeBron James being the greatest player of all time. And we're going to continue to see the hate that he has for Kawhi Leonard, the code red that has been issued on Kawhi Leonard. Let's continue to see what happens. Even though after you've been dick riding the nigga all offseason when they were supposed to acquire Kawhi Leonard. But that's none of my business.
Or am I going to look at this as a new team with a new coach and a slightly tweaked roster with an open mind? And I decided to take that route. I was like, oh, Kawhi's playing more. I love Ty Lue. Ibaka, when healthy, potentially positive addition. Oh, the Clippers. They're a real...
No, that's definitely an addition over Montrezl Harrell. Montrezl Harrell was a negative 70 something if I'm not mistaken in the playoffs last year. All right, he's a defensive fucking liability. And even with LeBron James hurt and they having all these guys, they were still losing hella games. All right, they score empty numbers.
Contender this year. And no, they're not. And they know they're not. And that's why they did what was one of the most embarrassing, and as a pro athlete, I would have to imagine mortifying 36 hours of basketball I've ever seen. The Houston Rockets had won 5 times in 49 games. And they threw the game against them to make sure, no matter what, they wouldn't play the Lakers in round 1. And if that's not enough, the very next day, they play a Thunder team that had won once since April 1st. They had lost 23 of 24. And they throw that game. And you might say, if they can't play the Lakers in round 1, why do they even care about throwing that game? Because they don't want to play the Lakers in round 2 either. Forget the fact that if you want to go to the finals, you got to beat the Lakers anyway. And
Right, so what are you talking about? So you're just talking. You're going to have to play the Lakers anyway. Allegedly. You're going to allegedly have to play the Lakers anyway. What are you talking? So what is the point in this conversation? I'm so confused. I'm so confused, bro. Somebody help me out.
strategically, it's dumb. If you want to play the Lakers...
Okay, strategically it's dumb. You just heard someone say that it happens in the NBA that you avoid teams in the playoffs. You don't want to face certain teams. So what was it when the dynastic Lakers with Kobe and Shaq, allegedly a top 5, Kobe Bryant, allegedly Kobe Bryant's a top 5 player in your eyes, Nick Wright, of all time. Kobe Bryant is. Him and Shaquille O'Neal is top 10 too. I'm not going to argue with that. Well, let's not even get into the Kobe conversation. All right, but what happened when those guys avoided the old-ass Utah Jazz team in the middle of their dynasty? Phil Jackson said that they openly avoided the Utah Jazz. What are you talking about? And Karl Malone was older than Tim Duncan when Tim Duncan damn near got swept to Tim Duncan in the finals, when Tim Duncan was 38 years old. He was old as fucking dog shit. Kawhi Leonard was 22 years old. All right? The Utah Jazz had an old-ass, what's his name? John Stockton and an old-ass Karl Malone, and they openly avoided the Utah Jazz. So what is that? And they won championships. So is that worse? Because they did avoid them? They happened to avoid them? That's what Phil Jackson wrote. I'm confused. What about when the Spurs or when the Oklahoma City Thunder and when every team was trying to avoid the Memphis Grizzlies coming up, when they had Mike Conley, when they had I think it was Jared Bayless. I think they had Mark Gasol, Zach Randolph. They had Tony Allen. Everybody was avoiding those guys. What are you talking about? But because it's Kawhi Leonard and he didn't want to team up with LeBron James and the Lakers to make everything easier for LeBron James, the code red has been issued on Kawhi Leonard. I hope you guys are paying attention to what's going on.
Early than late. When Schroeder is just now getting back. When LeBron is just getting back. When AD is getting back.
Exactly. So that's going to be an excuse for you guys. You guys always make excuses for LeBron James. You're saying it right now why they didn't play them early. You're saying it so they can take out all the good teams and it can only be the Lakers. The Lakers can take out all the whack teams. The Clippers will go face the challenges. With the number 1 team, Donovan Mitchell, who just might win MVP. I think that's going to be Nikola Jokic, honestly. But he's going to play those guys. Even if they do play the Jazz and the Nuggets too, Nikola Jokic is probably going to win MVP. So what are you talking about? You're saying the reason why they haven't played them early because you guys are going to just say, oh, Dennis Schroeder just got back and LeBron James hasn't been healthy and Andre Drummond, he's been playing iffy all season. No, you want to let them guys get into a rhythm and meet them to go to the finals. That way there's no more excuses. You go back to the team that everybody says that was supposed to beat you last year and that you got lucky to beat last year, being the Mavericks. Why would you? I understand. I would personally probably would go play Portland, but this is the smoke that you want. You want to take out all the good teams. This is why you have to respect Kawhi Leonard, man. He's the leader of that team, and he wants to go back and face those guys. He wants that issue. I think he understands the things that we've been saying about Kawhi Leonard and those Clippers teams, and he wants to take on the challenge head first, man. That's exactly what he's doing.
So it's a bad strategy, but it's also an embarrassing one.
So what was it when the dynastic Lakers did it to avoid the old ass Utah Jazz? The fuck are you talking about, Nick, right?
If you are a team, for instance, and this isn't how it played out, Joy, but if the Knicks could have lost a game to ensure they get the Hawks instead of the Heat, I actually would endorse that because the Knicks' ceiling this year is the second round of the playoffs. So it's a hugely successful.
So you're putting the same cap on the Clippers that there is with the Knicks, even though the Knicks have no players on their team whatsoever who have any type of championship experience and any DNA whatsoever, right? Right, I get you.
Season if they win one round.
That's a great fucking comparison, Nick. Right, Nick, wrong. Great fucking comparison.
The Clippers, if they don't make the finals, this first 2 years with Kawhi and Paul George is a massive failure. There is no.
I would agree with that. That you're right about. That would be a massive failure. Agreed.
Oh, we made the Western Conference Finals for the first time in the history of our sorry franchise. Hang a banner. No. So the fact that they are trying to game the system to avoid the team they're going to have to play anyway is, to me, it's not good strategy. And it's embarrassing for a team that is supposed to have the king of LA on it and be the best team in the West. Everyone should be trying to avoid you. You should not be trying to avoid other teams. But the Clippers revealed that they think of themselves this year what I thought of them last year, which is paper champions, paper tigers, not.
Yeah, right. They're paper champion, paper tigers, even though they have a player who's won 2 finals MVPs and led them to 2 finals MVPs. Yeah, I get you.
Real contenders. Otherwise, go beat the Lakers in round 1 and have an easy.
Right. So you can just say, oh, you guys had an easy path. You didn't face them at full strength. They weren't ready. LeBron James, he wasn't ready. He had to play a play-in game, and he wasn't completely in rhythm. He only had 2 games to play. It wasn't a full series. Right.
Path to the finals, Joy.
Well, sometimes you got to be real with yourself, Nick. That's what the Clippers are. While you were the Clippers' truth teller last year, I was a huge sucker. And I don't like to be made to look like a liar. So I have 0 expectations for this Clippers team. Prove it to me. And that's, while saying that.
What the hell do the Clippers have to prove to you? Who the fuck are you? This is the thing, man. Paul George has something to prove. All right, once again, the Clippers have never won anything ever. Paul George has something to prove, man. Kawhi Leonard had 1 bad game last year in the playoffs in Game 7. He had 1 bad game. He led the team in points. He led the team in rebounds. He led the team in assists. He led the team in steals. He led the team in blocks. He led the team in plus minus. All right, so what are you talking about? Whenever LeBron James loses, oh, but look at the stat, Skip. He averaged 38, 8, and 8, Skip. Like, you know, how does that sound, me bringing that up? Even though he did play well, when they counted the most, he didn't live up to his expectations. All right, but LeBron James, just like Stephen Curry, they have nothing to prove, man. Those guys have nothing to prove. When those guys go home and go to sleep at night, they're not losing any sleep. All right, but they still have fuel. They still have fuel that they still have achievements and things that they plan to achieve and acquire under their belt in the NBA. But they don't have anything to prove to you. They don't have anything to prove to me. If anything, they have something to prove to themselves because that's the reason that they're still playing. But they don't have anything to prove to your ass.
I really like Ty Lue, and I love Kawhi, but this Clippers organization's got to prove it to me. So I'm all for it. Do whatever you guys got to do because you have not proven anything to anybody. What could happen, so you're talking about embarrassing, what could happen is that they do this and then they lose to the Mavs or they lose in the second round again. And then it's really jokes on jokes.
Yeah.
So luck favors the prepared. Do what you got to do. You know, I'm all for strategy, especially if you aren't the big dog. But, you know, for me, it's not terribly surprising because it's the Clippers. And I think the Clippers have everything to prove. So it's not upsetting me because they're not.
Exactly. Well, not necessarily. The Clippers have nothing to lose, right? They're the laughingstock of the NBA. They have nothing to lose. So that's just going to make it even better for them, all right? And word is that Kawhi Leonard is already resigning with those guys, with the Clippers. All right, so once again, this is Kawhi Leonard taking on the challenge. Even if he loses again, he's going to resign and take on the challenge, and you guys are still going to make jokes. He has nothing to prove to you guys, man. They have everything to lose. They have nothing to lose either. They have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
They're not of the class that it would bother me, if that makes sense.
I buy that. But two things that I hate in this world: mimes and half measures.
Mimes.
And there was no pantomimes at the game, but there were a number of half measures. So if you want to avoid the Lakers, Nick, and I think this is your idea, you put it on a tweet, then the NBA should let you pick your opponents. If you want to dive into that theory, Nick, I'll toss it up to you. Because the idea that you're going to throw these games and have Ty Lue said, you know, priority's health. We got to go in here healthy. Like, what? Just say it. Say it for real. You know, priority's health. We got to go in here healthy. Like, what? Just say it. Say it for real. I don't need a half measure of trying to like have this as a cover for health. Just say, you know what? We're scared of the Lakers. Just do it. I actually think it would be liberating to just say it rather than put out your bottom 7 guys and have.
Right, so you rather them say that just like Phil Jackson said it in his book about the dynastic Lakers avoiding the old-ass Utah Jazz too. All right, so that makes sense.
Them get embarrassed. The idea that that's going to be good for team chemistry and sort of the mindset of a champion, that I just think it's terrible.
I agree with that when you're resting all your players, but the thing is, you guys still have this crazy ceiling for the Lakers, even though LeBron James and Anthony Davis were missing games, and the team hasn't been playing well without those guys. Kawhi Leonard and those guys sitting out, all their starters sitting out. They missed something like 90-something games all around, total, of their starting 5. Okay, and their team still finished better and played better than the Lakers all around. So the Clippers, and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, this is their second season there. So they already have the chemistry that they should need. All right, I understand what you're saying and what everybody else is trying to say with the load management and things of that nature, but that's what LeBron James has been doing, and nobody's talking about that. All right, so that's the thing that I'm talking about. Why isn't anybody talking about how LeBron James load managed to avoid the Clippers, to avoid a playoff tournament? Would Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Larry Bird have been sitting out if their team had been losing and having to play for a playoff position? Do you think they would have sat out for a play-in position?
Dig into your theory on how they should pick, because I think that would solve the problem.
Well,
I also think the NBA has a problem on their hand when teams are obviously throwing games, especially Oklahoma City. We got both teams trying to throw a game. It's absurd.
Yeah.
What about the Lakers trying to throw games to get the play-in tournament so they can play the Warriors?
I just think the 1 seed should be able to draft its playoff opponent in the first round, and then the 2 seed draft of who's left, the 3 seed and the 4 seed, so on and so forth. And then you would always have teams fighting for seeding, and you would never have a situation where there is a penalty for being the 1 seed, or for example, if the Warriors somehow beat the Lakers and then the Lakers end up the 8 seed, then the Jazz are like, you got to be bleeping kidding me. This is our reward. We get LeBron and Anthony Davis for round 1 of the playoffs. But here's the other, Antoine. Even if I think it's embarrassing, I understand what the Clippers did Saturday, which was guarantee they couldn't play the Lakers in round 1. I think what they did yesterday is bad strategy, and here's why. If they had just beaten the Thunder, which they almost beat by accident, it was a 2-point game with a minute left, they would have gotten in round 1 Portland. They are 6-0 against Portland since they got Kawhi and Paul George. Portland is drawing dead against them. Because they threw that game against the Thunder to stay on the opposite side entirely of the bracket of the Lakers, now they have the Mavs in round 1. The Mavs took them 6 last year, despite Luka being hurt early in the series, and have beaten them 2 out of 3 times this year. I think that the Mavs actually have took them 6 last year, despite Luka being hurt early in the series, and have beaten them 2 out of 3 times this year. I think that the Mavs actually have a real shot of beating them in round 1, and the Blazers had no shot whatsoever.
That's the point, Nick. Right. That's what I'm trying to say. But nobody is figuring it out. Okay, it's clear that they gave them problems last year, and they want to play them. That's what it is. They want that smoke. They want to go knock out the tough teams. They don't want an easy path to the finals. It's not going to be an easy path regardless. So let's go knock out the tough competition so we can make it easier on ourselves and have the dream matchup that we wanted, the Lakers. Then go to the finals and do what we do.
So not only do I think it's embarrassing for what they're trying to accomplish, I also think it's bad strategy to opt for the Mavs over the Blazers in round 1.
It's a bad strategy to go for a better matchup. That's going to do numbers. That's going to be a great matchup. That's a team, once again, that gave them problems last year. A team that everyone said the Clippers got lucky in beating them. Everyone was saying that. So clearly they're taking on the challenge to go play these guys again. They know what the talk of the town is. Once again, this is why you have to respect Kawhi Leonard in my eyes. Even if it blows up in their face, they want to go take on that smoke. I can only applaud that, man.
Well, the problem is, Nick, you got to think about it. T. Lue probably had a meeting. With that, when you got 2 guys like Kawhi and Paul George, you will hope he had a meeting with those guys and said, what do you guys want to do? And I'm assuming those guys said, let's not play and let's go a different route. Let's try to go from the 4th seed. And that's the part that's a little disheartening as far as being competitive. And these guys are supposed to have championships.
How is that disheartening in the side of being competitive if that's the team that is a matchup problem? If that's the team that's been giving them problems since last year? What the fuck are you guys talking about? Everyone in the media is hating on the Clippers and Kawhi Leonard. It's sad to see, man, but it's also beautiful because when Kawhi Leonard does come out on top again, because eventually he will. Kawhi Leonard is about that smoke, man. Kawhi Leonard is cut from that cloth. I did lose a little bit of respect for Kawhi Leonard because of the way that he was playing this season. He wasn't picking up, the best player, even like he was doing last year in the playoffs when Luka was getting hot. But now he has been doing that. That's why their defensive numbers have gone up. Kawhi Leonard has set the tone when he's been playing defensively. All right, now it's just going to be easier for Kawhi Leonard to be Kawhi Leonard. And it's going to be less on his shoulders. All right, especially with Rondo there, getting those guys in a position. With Rondo there, they're going to know where they're going to be getting the ball. When certain plays are called, they know if they cut to the basket or where they're standing after they set a certain screen, based on what the defense is doing, they will have a shot. So it's not like the LeBron James system with everybody else where you just stand at the three-point line. I dribble between my legs, drive and kick, and get you for a wide open 3. It's totally different, man. You got to respect these guys because they're taking on the challenge from a competitive standpoint. You have to like what the Clippers are doing. I don't see the point that everybody's missing. They tore the Trailblazers up. I don't give a fuck how hot they are.
Pedigree, especially Kawhi Leonard, a guy who's won multiple championships, who's been an MVP of the finals. You would think he would embrace the challenge of going against the Lakers no matter what round it is.
Exactly, but look, Kawhi Leonard is familiar with the media and what you guys have set up. If LeBron James gets to the conference finals, there will be no excuses because he led his team there. If they face him in the first round, LeBron James can still. Oh, LeBron James wasn't completely in rhythm. He was coming off a big injury. He's old. He's getting older now. So I understand. I think I understand what the Clippers are doing, and I applaud them for this. Clearly, the Mavericks are a matchup problem, and they're going after that. How can you not? I'm confused, man.
But I truly believe that they sat down as a group and decided that they were going to make this decision to go from the 4th seed, and they felt like that's the best way they could get to the finals. And they did what they wanted to probably avoid the NBA champs. It's unfortunate as basketball fans.
How can you avoid the Lakers, the NBA champs, when the Lakers have to play for a play-in battle they still have to play for their playoff position? What are you talking about? Eventually, they're going to have to play the Lakers anyway if the Lakers are the best team in the West, according to you guys.
How much we love the game and how much we love the competition. But this is a different group, Nick. These guys sit out games. This is the most sit out superstars I've ever seen this year. It's been unbelievable to see superstars sit out 10, 15 games. It's actually ridiculous. Every other game, we can't even get.
Yeah, but you're going to have to go ahead and get used to that because this is the new NBA. Even though it is bad for you to be sitting out for big games and, things of that nature, these guys are commodities. All right? Their bodies are what make them money. The fact that they're physically inclined and in shape and things of that nature and that they can perform at such a high level. All right? Those guys make hundreds of thousands of dollars a day per week type thing. Millions a month. All right? Stop complaining. These guys had to come back and play a bubble tournament. All right? And you couldn't sit out too many games. They had the All-Star game compact because the NBA has to make their money back. So these guys can sit out, man. These guys have lives after the fucking NBA. They have children. They're going to want to hold their children. What happens if you keep playing and you put so much wear and tear on your body? You end up like Jerome Bettis or Earl fucking Campbell. You can't stop fucking shaking. I think it was one of the football players for the Ravens. I want to say it was Todd Heap, or if I'm not mistaken, he couldn't even pick up his daughter. He was in so much pain, he couldn't even pick up his daughter. He never has picked up his daughter. So what are you talking about?
Quality game to see if these teams match up well together. So this is going to be a great playoff because we're going to finally get to see the superstars play. But I understand why the Clippers did it because you feel like you don't match up well against the Lakers, so you try to avoid them. And I think it was a collective group decision. I can't see this T. Lue just making that decision on his own without talking to Kawhi and Paul George.